EU leaders have spent about 16 hours debating, among other things, how best to talk U.S. President Donald Trump out of slapping steep tariffs on European goods. They met until late Thursday in Brussels. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen said all options regarding trade talks were on the table, but German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the EU should aim for a quick and simple deal. The bloc is facing a July 9th deadline to make an agreement or see its goods face 50% levies.
When it came to Donald Trump's new trade proposal, Friedrich Merz once again seemed impatient with his colleagues in the European Union.
On the topic of America, I didn't criticize that. I only suggested, and I have pushed for this, that we don't make it too complicated. We have less than 2 weeks until July the 9th. That's why a quick and simple trade deal is preferable to a slow and complicated one. We must now reach a quick result. We all agree on that. There's no dissent.
The German Chancellor said industries like cars, chemicals, steel and aluminium were already burdened by high tariffs and that businesses were in danger as long as no trade deal was struck. And he has an ally in Emmanuel Macron. The French president said Paris was also in favour of a quick agreement and doesn't want things to drag on forever. Merz also backed the proposal of his compatriot, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, to build a new trade body that would eventually replace the World Trade Organization, which has struggled for relevance in recent years.
We all know the WTO doesn't work anymore.
Merz said the idea of the new body was in its early stages, but that it could become what the WTO was supposed to be. As with the US trade deal, the German Chancellor seems anxious for progress.
I asked DW Brussels correspondent Anchal Fora where the EU is now with its negotiating strategy for trade talks.
Well, there's still a split between those who are calling for a quick deal and those who are calling for a more considered deal. Now, we've heard the German Chancellor call for a quick deal and several others are backing him because they feel that they have a momentum with President Trump right now, because just at The Hague a few days ago, they have all agreed to up their defense spending to 5%. They're hoping that the American president is in a good mood and they can get a quick deal done. Whereas others say, look, we've got to sit down, and this is an EU traditional way. We've got to sit down, look at all sectors. This is about businesses, this is about livelihoods, and they oppose what essentially a quick deal would amount to, and that would be a US-UK style deal. Now, the UK has agreed to 10% baseline tariffs. They don't have sectoral tariffs, but they still have 10% baseline tariffs. That suits countries like Germany just fine, because essentially they would be hurt more by a sector-based tariff, particularly on the automobiles. But others say we need to deliberate more on the details. However, I've got to say that after yesterday's long discussions, the conversation seems to be moving in favour of a quicker deal and perhaps accepting baseline tariffs and doing away with the sectoral ones, because frankly, the allies are running out of time.
Now, there's widespread concern, we're hearing this from different people, about the effectiveness of the World Trade Organization. That's the global body that's supposed to reduce global trade barriers and maintain a level playing field. But what are EU leaders saying about the WTO in this situation?
Well, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is essentially saying that let's have a different, better version of WTO. Essentially, the allies here are just, they don't know when President Trump can change policy. They feel rules-based trade order is not working anymore with the US on board in WTO. So they want a different body altogether. And perhaps the US will not be a part of it. At the moment, they're saying it should have other bigger economies, such as from the Indo-Pacific. You know, they want Canada and Japan and the UK to be a part of it. Essentially, there's a bit of a fatigue here. You know, how is business going to be conducted in a Trump era where, you know, rules are being changed on whim and then they're not rules at all? They're also in hushed tones. They're talking about the role of euro as a global currency. They're not saying much, but there's a whisper of a threat there to the dollar.